Hey guys, thank you so much for allowing me to come and speak to you for about 3 to 5, 6 minutes, something like that. But this month in HGM, we're actually speaking into the power of self-awareness. And for me, I want to talk a little bit about church culture. One thing about culture that I've identified and I realize is culture creates itself. You don't have to have a board meeting. You don't have to have a staff meeting. You don't have to, come up with 3 B's of creating great culture or bad culture. It just creates itself. It shows up. You don't have to do anything for it to be there. But if you want a healthy culture, see, that's the key, right? You've got to begin to pay attention to it. So your church culture, one of the things I want you to understand is your church culture is not what you say it is. Some people say, well, our church is friendly. Well, to you it is, because you're friendly to people and the friends that you're around, the 3 or 4 people you're around are friendly to you, so you think the church culture is friendly. Well, what about the first-time guest that just came onto the parking lot and nobody talked to them from the time they got out of their car all the way until they sat in the sanctuary? Culture is not something that's just spoken. It's actually experienced. It's the feel in the room, not the talk that comes from our mouths as leaders. So we got to understand when people come onto our properties, whether they're guests or whether they've been there for 30 years, it doesn't matter. What we're trying to do is create a culture that is cohesive to what we say our church is. So a self-aware church culture is one that's intentional. So just write that down if you're taking notes. You've got to be intentional, and you've got to be intentional about understanding your values, your beliefs, your vision, your strengths, and your weaknesses. And what we want to do in those areas is we want to begin to bring self-awareness to it. So it's a self-aware church culture. It's not just a church culture. You can have a bad church culture. But if you're self-aware about the bad church culture, now you're able to change the culture that's bad. Okay? So here's a few key characteristics of a self-aware church culture. The first thing I would say is just having open communication. So if you're taking notes, write that down. Open communications. Leaders or team members, they have to feel comfortable discussing their thoughts, concerns, and being able to provide feedback very openly. Whether that feedback is positive or whether that feedback is constructive, there has to be open communication to have a self-aware church culture. The second thing would be just reflection and evaluation. It's a culture that assesses programs and activities and the impact on different areas that need improvement on a regular basis. So you've got to open up room for reflection and evaluation. The third, I think, is very, very important, and that's humility and transparency. Let's just get honest. As lead pastors, sometimes we want our churches to be a specific way. And when we hear that someone don't think that it's the way that we think it is, we can get a little prideful. We can buck up. We can say, oh, well, that's how you feel. That's not how I feel. This is where the third thing comes in. You got to be humble. You got to have some humility in you, and then there has to be transparency. Leaders, church members, team members, whoever it is, has to be willing to acknowledge the mistakes that they've made that's created bad culture, because if you can do that in humility and transparency, then you're going to begin to grow towards growth and change. Growth and change is what you're looking for. But here's the truth. We can talk about all the self-awareness. We can talk about all the things that needs to happen. We can talk about 5 keys to a better culture. But the key to all of this is bringing accountability to the self-awareness. So if you know you have to be self-aware, but you don't have anybody around you that's holding you accountable to becoming self-aware, you're in trouble. I'm in trouble, right? But here's the thing. A lot of people, they don't like the word accountability. It seems like it has a negative connotation. When the truth is, accountability should not be viewed as a means of punishment, but rather as a pathway to growth and transformation. And by inspiring each leader, each team member to take ownership of their actions when it comes to this self-awareness and their commitments, the church can begin to embody a culture of accountability that uplifts and empowers everyone that's a part of it. So here's a couple steps real quick on the accountability side that can be taken to make some of the accountability measures happen. Number 1, establish clear expectations of what the culture should feel like. gather everybody around. You want to be part of this and say, here's what we want our church to feel like. Here's the culture that we're looking for. Here's our core values. We want to live them out. And you want to establish those clear expectations, right? Then, secondly, and I'm done, you've then got to encourage regular, say that with me, regular, not once a year, not once a quarter, but regular feedback sessions to evaluate the progress and address any issues that need to be addressed as they come up in creating this self-aware church culture. So a couple questions for you, and then I'm done. Number one, have you created a self-aware church culture in your local church? If so, you say, hey, yeah, we've created that. If you have you put the accountability in place where the experience in your local church, from the seat to the street, is the best that it can be? I hope you have, and I hope this has helped you. God bless you.